Smart strategy, real conversations, bigger margins. This is Chasing the Margin podcast.
All right, welcome back to Chasing the Margin. Today we have Mr. Shaun Butterworth. Shaun, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
So, Shaun, just give us a little bit of background about who you are, what you do, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Name's Shaun Butterworth. I'm not born here, but I was raised in Dallas. Went to North Carolina High School. Always been here. The only time I've left, I went out to the Navy for 5 years. Came back after the Navy. Got 2 kids. My wife Carolyn, married to her, and we're Dallas people. So
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize that you weren't born here in Dallas, but I know you've been around for a long time, and I've met lots of your friends that I assume you'll claim them as friends. Some of them are a little sketchy characters. So,
well, I know I've sent some referrals, and so if I sent referrals, I'll claim them as friends first, I guess. But no, it's kind of fun having some of my buddies own other businesses. We're all part of the same group, so it's kind of cool to know we have the same accounting firm. I like having that. So
yeah, I say that jokingly because they're all great guys. They've been great to work with, just like you have. So glad to have them on board. Well, Shaun, let's kind of dive into your history, maybe some work history with what you've did previously and then what you're currently doing, and we'll dive into the story of how you ended up there. So tell us kind of what you were doing previously before this.
So before I had my current business, I spent after getting out of the Navy and then going to college. After college, I spent a few years in the accounting world. Working for old EDS back in the day, pretty much quickly discovered this isn't my bag. I want to do something a little more socially interactive, and so I moved out of that and I moved into IT project management, and then pretty much the rest of the next 20 plus years were all various components of an IT. Being the last 13, I was an IT executive for a consulting company. My customer was Dell, and I spent every week in Austin pretty much. I never was actually an IT guy. I was more of a business development kind of guy. But thoroughly enjoyed that. And then, like everybody in the IT world, I got laid off in 2016, I think it was. And I needed to go figure out what I was going to do. And then we're kind of where we're at, I guess, in the story now.
Yeah. Yeah, so you and I met not too long after that 2016 period, and then we've been working together. But you have a company that's called Stratus Building Solutions. So you're part of that larger company, I guess we'll say it like that. But kind of explain to us exactly what it is, and then we'll dive back into the history. Stratus
Building Solutions is a commercial cleaning franchise business. We're nationwide, Canada as well. I think there's 90-something locations throughout the two countries. It is a franchise system for people to get into their own cleaning businesses. So I'm what they call a master franchise. I bought the franchise for the Dallas-Fort Worth market back in 2017, opened the doors at the beginning of 2018. Then I sell franchises to individuals, and they have their own little companies. They're under our umbrella. There's a lot of mentoring, a lot of guidance, that kind of stuff, but it really helps people to kind of get into business for themselves. And if people who are in that world, it affords them the opportunity to make much better money than they would if they were working for, the local janitorial company. So it's pretty cool to watch those people do quite a bit better than they would if they didn't go this route.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the most rewarding parts of the business is to see that, just like any business, just to see the people that you're working with succeed really pays off in the end. So, back then, it wasn't just simply, Shaun knew he wanted to get into a cleaning business, and it wasn't just he knew he wanted to get into Stratus. So tell me kind of the journey from going from the IT side to getting to Stratus.
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, I had gotten laid off back in 2016, and I just had some buddies out there that kept me busy for about a year doing contract work, running around the United States doing various IT projects and so forth. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. What was I going to do next? And I knew I didn't want to stay in IT because it never was a passion of mine. I just kind of fell into it. And I knew I wanted to do something that was mine. So one day I remember distinctly I was sitting in a hotel room in New Jersey on this contract, and a guy called me up, and he introduced himself, and he was with basically a franchise headhunter type deal, where they represent a bunch of franchises, find individuals, bring them together, and off you go. So he told me it'd take him about 3 or 4 months probably in the process. We went through that process. He kept bringing IT franchises back to me, and I kept telling him, I don't want to do franchising in IT. I don't want to do IT. I want something different. Anyways, he kept bringing Stratus to me, and I didn't totally understand the Stratus because it was a master franchise as opposed to being a franchise. And I kept thinking, selling franchises, I don't know if that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But he kept bringing it back to me, bringing it back to me 3 different times. And each time he brought it back to me, I understood it a little bit better. And finally, I got it. When I got it, I was like, oh, this might be a pretty good business opportunity for me. So I went out and did a discovery day. We met with the Stratus people. I was actually looking at another franchise system at the exact same time. The exact same week, I went to Salt Lake City and I went to L.A. To talk to both companies. And when I got back, I talked to one of the guys that had a lot of faith in, and he looked at both the ideas and he said that cleaning one, you really need to look at that. That's a good business model. So after a little prayer and consulting with my wife, we were like, let's go. So we stepped off and went that direction, and we haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I think that you definitely have a different perspective than a lot of the guests who have come on, because franchising is a completely different type of business than just starting up a business and selling a product or a service. There's a lot more that goes into it. And one of the interesting things about you is the fact that you were at this crossroads where you had a couple different things that you could do, and you had been working as a W-2 employee, I believe, for a while.
Yeah.
And kind of had a pretty extensive career doing that. Mm-hmm. But then, like you said, you wanted to bet on yourself. So when you're at that crossroads, it's my understanding that it wasn't just like several different cleaning businesses. It was several different types of businesses that you could invest as a franchisor. Is that correct?
Well, my option, yeah. I mean, when I was in that discovery phase, where I wanted to go, yeah, I had multiple different franchise systems. I looked. I remember looking at. One was like a locksmith company. One was a box lunch company. One, there was an IT kind of like nerd geek squad, kind of like that. There was all these different opportunities out there. I just had to decide which one I wanted to go after.
Yeah.
So then that's how that played out. Because he did bring me the IT geek squad knockoff, and I'm like, yeah, I just don't want to do that. I wanted to do something that I felt, I just want something different in life at the time.
Yeah. Do you think, what were kind of the main driving factors between like branching out on your own and really truly betting on yourself versus just looking for another W-2 job?
Well, a couple things. One, I had been looking because I was kind of, I'd looked for a good, it was almost a year. And every time I seemed like I get down to the last, person, and for whatever reason that door would close. One time, I was convinced I was in, and everybody said yes. And then all the last moment, somebody else was new to the organization stepped in, and they had somebody else in mind, and so the doors kept closing, so I just kept running both routes. I believe probably that God had a plan for me. I actually had somebody come up to me and tell me at church one day, I just feel like I need to tell you this. And he said, there's a clear path for you. And I was like, what? And that's exactly what it was. And I was dealing with that at the time. I was trying to figure out, hey, what am I going to do? And he said, there's a clear path. And as soon as he said that, I knew. I was like, yeah, there is. I know what it is. It's that cleaning business. That's the one. I need to go do that. And I did. And I haven't looked back since, like I said earlier.
That's awesome. What do you think some of the pros are of like jumping into the franchise side versus just doing your W-2 thing?
Yeah, well, the pros on on the franchise side is, hey, you're the boss. That's there's the risk and reward that come with it. Obviously, I can either make a lot of money this year or maybe not make a lot of money this year, but I have that opportunity to really affect that myself, as opposed to being W-2. I'm at the whim of what they want to pay you. But the other thing is also that you could, with a W-2, it's when they decide you're done, you're done. And I know where I'm at now. I actually I was at a conference the other day speaking on a panel, and I said, I don't ever have to worry now again about putting my resume together. I don't have to worry about getting laid off. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I don't have to go. One thing I really love is I'll never have to go on another job interview, and those kind of things were very. Now I wasn't like, I'm talking more confidently about that right now, 8 years into this deal. I probably wouldn't. I wasn't thinking that way year one and year two. Not that I was worried or anything like that, but I wasn't thinking about all those. I'm never going to do this again. I'm never going to do that again. I wasn't thinking that way back then. That's more of a recent development because I'm pretty confident the business is solid, and there's really there's no way to really stop it now unless some kind of catastrophic thing happens that I'm not aware of. But so that's kind of how that played out.
Yeah. Well, I've worked with you for quite a few years, and there's a lot of foundation that's been built, like you said, that would lead us to believe that it's going to trend the same way, and that things aren't going to just all of a sudden implode on themselves. So I agree with that. But kind of take us through maybe year one, year two. What were some of the most challenging things? Were there moments where you were like, "Hey, I don't know if this is going to work out"?
So I don't know if I ever had a moment. So the first couple years, I don't know if I ever had a moment I didn't think this was going to work out. I'm not sure I ever got to that point. But from a challenging perspective, one thing is in the clean. So the way our business works, basically we're a huge sales engine in the front, and we're out there selling all the time. And then what happens is once a contract is signed, we will pick out a franchise owner to be that's going to clean that account, and we'll hand that account off to that franchise owner, and they will clean that account and keep it for however long it stays around. But one of the challenging things was that first year was we were selling accounts all over Dallas-Fort Worth, but we didn't have a lot of franchise owners. We were signing them, but we sign a guy in Garland, but we land an account in Duncanville. Well, the guy in Garland can't go clean the Duncanville. That's just too far. So that first year was really me and my staff. We had to go clean a lot. And so that was a challenging thing because I was like, I really didn't want to be a janitor, but here I was, But it was actually good because I learned a lot. I really did learn a lot about cleaning. So we cleaned. That first year and a half, we cleaned a bit. It tapered off that second half of that second year. It really tapered off. And then by the end of the second year, we never had to really ever go out again. But that first year and a half was the challenging part was, sucking it up and doing the work and having to, as I say, roll your sleeves up and clean. And it was fun telling people I was a janitor because I kind of was.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because if you ever watch like Shark Tank or something like that, one of the most attractive things about somebody that's selling a pitch on their company would be, hey, I have all these purchase orders, but I don't have the funds to build the inventory, and my problem is it's that middleman. And it sounds like that's kind of in a obscure way what you were running into was you had the customers, you had the sales within your team and your immediate people, but you didn't have that middleman or like the product, if I'm still relating it to like my manufacturing example. And it was all this potential that you guys had, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the people, it doesn't really matter how many sales you make. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, like I said, it was challenging. But we were fortunate. I look back on it and it went way smoother than I thought it was going to, even though I had to go do some of those things. Like I said earlier, we had our first franchise owner signed 2 weeks into our business. And we're like, oh, this is easy. We got one. We sold our first account, put them together, and we're like, this is easy, let's go. But then the logistics started to fall in place because we started selling the other ones. He's still with us to this day. He's our very first franchise owner. But it became evident when we started selling stuff in Fort Worth. And he lives in Oak Cliff. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. What are we going to do?
Well, let's kind of dive further into the story of when you first got started with a little bit of stuff that I know, and I'd love for you to share. So for anybody who's listening, they may hear you say, hey, I got out of this W-2 gig, started with this franchise opportunity, and you make it sound so easy, and they may be saying, okay, well, that sounds great, Shaun, and I have the drive and I have the passion and I'm willing to take the risk, but I don't have the cash. Well, the way that you funded the business was a little unique with how you came about the funds. So kind of explain to me what happened there.
Yeah. I can't use all the exact accounting terms, but because there's a way, but there's an opportunity. What I did was we pulled money out of our 401k, and there's particulars we had to. Like I said, I can't give you all the nuts and bolts, but the bottom line is basically my 401k loaned me the money to start my business, and then over time we ended up putting the money back into the 401k and buying ourselves out of the 401k, so that we took that. Remember, we took it from a C corp to an S back to an S corp. But there are ways that you can do that. You can actually you have access to your money, and you can do stuff with that money. And it's a risk, obviously, pulling your money out. But like I said, it's definitely worked out for us.
Yeah, considering you don't have the accounting background, I think you did a pretty good job of explaining. And I think that's the thing that I want people to understand is, you were able to pull. Basically, the 401k was a shareholder within the company.
Yeah.
And even though there are limitations on how much you can pull out with through a true loan, you do have the opportunity like this, which for anybody listening is called a ROBS.
Yeah.
And
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now they can really remind me of that.
Yeah. All those years back. And they can put the money in as a shareholder, and it presents an opportunity. And there's pros and cons to both. And, we've had lots of discussion around that all those years ago when we were converting you over for tax purposes. But the bottom line is, for anybody who's listening who may not have all of that, sitting in a savings account, there is a lot of opportunity there. But I'm glad that you make the point, because there's still risk involved, just like there is with any business.
Sure there is.
But when you first started, you mentioned, I think you said 2017, 2018. Is that right?
Yeah, I bought the franchise technically. Well, not technically, I did. I bought the franchise in the latter part of 2017, and then we actually opened the doors for business January 1 of 18.
Okay, gotcha. And then the first couple years, I'm sure you said you had to do a lot of cleaning, had to do a lot of other stuff. But then shortly after you started was this huge event that, in my mind, it's just like, oh, well, this presented a lot of opportunity for you, which was COVID. So kind of explain to me what that was like during COVID, when cleaning all around the world became a huge deal.
Well, the one, we'd been in business for just over 2 years at the time. So that was nice, because we had a nice base. By then we had a nice base going on, and we were starting to make money, I guess you could say. The first 2 years we were building up money. I wasn't taking a salary that first 2 years, but we were starting to make money. But then when COVID hit, the floodgates opened. It was a year that, I wasn't mad about it, put it that way. Every day we were out disinfecting businesses, and they were desperate, and so they would pay a price for that desperation, obviously. And we did quite well. Matter of fact, we did so well that the tax man came calling, and that's why we ended up buying the building we're in now, because I needed we needed something to defer our income off. So we bought that building, which that made a big impact on our tax bill for the next year. But yeah, we dealt with it. But it was, and it's the first time in my life I really realized, because I've heard this before, but I've never really seen it in practice. There are always winners and losers in any kind of national event or catastrophe of some sort. There always is. And I advise, well, I saw it because we were a winner. Fortunately for us, we were a winner, and obviously a lot of businesses weren't. But it definitely propelled us. It probably accelerated where we were going to be by 2 years. So, we were, where we should have been at the end of year 3, we were probably at year 5 because of what COVID did for us. So, I wouldn't want to go through it again, obviously. I really wouldn't, because it was bad. And I tried to talk a lot of companies out of doing what they were paying me to do. I really did. Because I thought, I don't think you need to spend that money to do that. But I got to the point that they just told me our people won't come back if you don't come in. So we did, and, so I felt fine about it because I tried to talk people out of it, but because I really believed that I didn't think they needed the disinfecting like we were doing, but everybody was doing it, so we did it too.
Yeah, I really appreciate that about people when they try to have that full transparency of, like, you were going to win was the bottom line if you sold the job. But even when you try to put your own benefit aside and just tell people, like, hey, we can do this and, like, this is everything, but you don't necessarily need it. I appreciate that about entrepreneurs who just try to really put the customer first, because to me it really pays off in the end, because it shows, hey, you really care about people and you're not just in it for the money.
It did, and we landed. I mean, I'd have to go back and count. I don't remember, but we probably landed 20, 25 new customers for recurring cleaning services when they came up and went back, and we still have a chunk of them to this day. Which is nice, because that's really my bread and butter is the recurring revenue stream. So we were able to, like I said, parlay that into, hey, do y'all need cleaning services too? Well, we do. So that was a nice benefit for us off of that.
Yeah. So back then, especially when things were really hot, maybe like March 2020, probably till the end of the year at least.
Yep.
Was it kind of, you had to set prices higher, or did you just turn away business, or how did that work?
Well, we kind of played around with it, because there really wasn't, to be honest with you, there really wasn't a set. I mean, nobody had ever dealt with this, and everybody was just charging. Now I have a bunch of other cohorts around the nation, so we would talk, and and we started. How much do we charge? I don't know. We I think we started at, like, I don't know, 25 cents a square foot, kind of what we were hitting. But a couple things changed too, which was nice. The first month or so, we were sending out big teams of 16, 17, 18 people, and we'd spend multiple hours, because we would be spraying stuff, letting it dry, then wiping, and it was a very labor intense operation. And then over time, we figured out we could just spray chemical, and we got some chemicals that were COVID certified, and we could walk in with sprayers and spray, like, the chairs and tables in here, and then walk away and let them dry, and they were fine. They didn't have to be wiped because the chemicals they had created didn't leave residue. So then all of a sudden it became a lot less labor intensive. We could walk in and out with a couple people on sprayers and get a whole building done in 1/10 the time it used to take us. So that was a big game changer, but that also changed our pricing model. I think we were looking at 25 cents a square foot. Then we were like, it's a lot easier now. So we started dropping down we got down to around 10. And then the latter part of COVID, we went down to 5 cents a square foot. We were still making, pretty good money on that number, but, some people call me up and they tell me what they got, and I tell them what they charge, and they're like, oh, you're a lot cheaper than the other guy. When can you be out here? And then other times I got, that's a little too much expensive for us. So it kind of played itself out over time. We felt like we were just kind of following the market, and I had very few jobs, I would say, call me, and I gave them a price, and then they called me back and said I was too expensive. So in that time, people weren't looking at price anyways. They were just looking to get their businesses back open. So
yeah. I mean, I think that's with any industry is, regardless of what it is you're providing, you're gonna have people that are more expensive than you. You're gonna have people that are cheaper than you, and sometimes you're just not a good fit for the customer because you're not what they're looking for. Or, did you ever get told that you? Because in our industry, a lot of times if we say a price, sometimes it can be too low, and then a customer would just assume, oh, well, that you can't provide the service I'm looking for because there's no way you could at that price. Did you ever run into that issue where you were too low for a customer?
From a COVID perspective, or just from a general cleaning perspective?
You can give me both.
From a COVID, no, I never ran into that. No. Because nobody knew.
Yeah.
I mean,
So much unknown back
they
then.
just didn't know. I mean, heck, I didn't know. I mean, who knows? We might have been charging way too little. I don't know. But we were happy, so that's all that mattered. Now, the funny thing in the cleaning world is, when you mentioned, is that too low? The customer hardly ever tells you. Matter of fact, probably one hand I can probably, number of times I've had somebody go, "Oh, your price is too low. You can't provide the service for that." Mm-hmm. Because now I tell customers all the time, we'll come in and give them a bid. "Oh, you're twice what we're paying now," and I'm like, "Yeah, we're twice what you're paying now, and that's why I'm here, because you said they're terrible." It's what I mean. They're running in and out of your building in 20 minutes, and that's why they can still make money at that rate, because they're not there very long. Mm-hmm. And you're complaining. I've said that, and I always, one of my favorite terms is, "Don't hold me to the poor contract that you signed." Mm-hmm. My deal. I tell people all the time, I price it to clean it. I mean, I can give you different levels. I can give you a Chevrolet or a Buick or a Cadillac. What you want, you tell me what you want, and I can do that. But yeah, nobody ever tells me that's not enough. You need to do more. It's always usually the other way around. You're too expensive, and it's because somebody else has given them a contract that's not very good. And
yeah, well, we definitely run into that where I'll tell somebody a price, and they're like, "That's 5-10 times the amount," and then I go look at their tax return, and it's like, well, yeah, there's a reason you're paying a fifth or a tenth of what we would charge you, and it's because you're not paying your tax guy, you're paying the government.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you guys have, and maybe this is kind of a COVID versus non-COVID question, just like you pointed out there, like a quality control type situation where, whether it's inspections that you do on a regular basis or anything like that?
Yeah, so I have I have an operations team. And I have that, and then they're W-2 to me. That I have my staff that helps me run the business itself, and those individuals, they have a set schedule of what customers they need to hit every month, and sometimes it's either via visits or sometimes it's via phone calls, depending on the cadence and so forth. Mm-hmm. But we have a fully structured inspection process where they'll go out and they'll take a look and they'll mark it down. They'll talk to the customer. They'll get a signature. It gets put in our system. Our franchise owner gets a copy of that inspection report, so they know what they need to work on. And there's a lot of two-way communication back and forth, because everybody's different in the cleaning world from a standpoint of your cleanliness would be filthy to me, maybe, which can be very frustrating. So we try to standardize as much as we can around that inspection process, and it definitely helps. I mean, it definitely gives the customer chances to talk about things that maybe are frustrating them, and we like that to happen, because what we found out is if we don't get in front of them enough and things fester, then that's when you start having account terminations and things like that, and that's the death nail for you. You want to always avoid that if you can.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like you said, everybody has different. Like, what I say is clean doesn't necessarily mean that's what you think is clean. Have you had customers where maybe they start out at, to use your example, the Chevrolet level, and then you guys start cleaning it, or one of the teams starts cleaning it, and they're like, "Hey, this is not even close to what I need," and then they actually step up to a higher service because that's what they really want?
Very few times that happens. I mean, there have been a few times that it has happened, and we've increased the price and we've increased how much cleaning we do. But I would say that's more of a rarity than anything else.
Okay.
One of my favorite things, anytime I'm in a sales appointment and they're telling me, "We're real low maintenance, we don't really require a lot," they are the worst. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, they'll be finding dust on top of one of this wood piece here, and they're like, okay, it's amazing. Anybody tells you they're not high maintenance, they're always high maintenance. It's just the way it seems to be in the cleaning world. I don't know why, but you deal with it.
Well, I think that's any industry really, because that's the same in ours. I hear that all the time with people that come in, and it's normally the people that are like super late on their taxes, or they've got multiple years that haven't been filed, and they're like, hey, I'm very organized. It's not going to be difficult. And then they give you documents. And it's like, this is not anything. Your definition of organized and mine versus your definition of cleaning and mine are a little different.
A little different, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So Stratus, like you said, is a franchise model. So you have different franchisors throughout the United States.
Correct.
And you, like you mentioned earlier, you talk with them on a regular basis. So I was kind of curious, one, has that been helpful to have somebody that you can reach out to? And maybe what are some of the pros that you've seen over all these years?
Yeah. Having a mentor system through if you were to go down the franchise model, even if you don't go down the franchise model, there's still people out in your whatever industry you're in. There's people out there doing what you're doing. It's hugely impactful and helpful. Matter of fact, well, before I bought my franchise, there was about 4 or 5 guys that I called and had pretty long conversations with about how everything works. And then I actually went to New Orleans actually, and I hung out with a guy named Mike out there. His business, and he showed me the whole day, showed me how it all worked, and I came home realizing, yeah, I can do this for sure. But I kept using that network, and to this day, I mean, we're finishing up year 8 here, right, next month, I guess, and I still reach out to that network. Those guys are all still there. They're all, have large organizations, companies, and they're all extremely helpful. Much more so than, and I don't mean this in a bashing way, they're much more helpful than the corporate people are in the my system, because they're doing what I'm doing every day. So it really helps that I can go to other guys that have already been down that trail and go, hey, how do you, have you ever run into this? Oh yeah, here's what I did. So that is one of the benefits of the franchise system itself. You depending on the franchise system, you have some decent corporate type support, but you've also got your network of franchisees out there that can always help you.
Is it one of those things where it's kind of like, hey, we've all run into issues and we've all needed advice from other franchisors, where it's, hey, I'll scratch your back because I know I'll have a question down the road if you'll scratch my back type deal?
No, I mean, not in our system. No, everybody is just happy to help because they just, they like what they do, they like the system, they like the people, and they're just willing to help. I mean, they don't require the opportunity to call you back and you scratch their back, vice versa. It's not a situation like that. And some of those, I've had a few of those senior guys. They're senior to me, They've called me occasionally now. Hey, have you ever run into this? That time. It slowly but surely the worm turns. Now I'm starting to become one of the older guys, so I'm actually can add some input and so forth as well. But no, it's hugely beneficial, and I would tell anybody, like I said, if they're in a franchise system, make sure you have some people out there in your system that you can always call and leverage. But if you're not in a franchise, or if you're in just a particular industry, help yourself by at least developing some type of relationship with somebody else in that industry that you can always reach out to. The great thing for us now, it might be different it's going to be different obviously from business to business. But what's great about ours is we're not competing. I mean, if I call the guy in Nashville, I'm not stealing business from him. He's going to tell me everything he knows, or give me all the advice he can, because I'm not taking his business because he's in Nashville. So that's the great thing about it. And what's really cool too, from time to time, and this happens pretty regularly, I'll get a call. Hey, this is so and so in Indianapolis, and we got a customer up here, and they got an office in Dallas, and they think they need some help. So here's the name. Why don't you give them a call? And that's awesome. I love getting those, and I love doing, and I like in turn giving it back out, because that's the kind of stuff that people really, it's nice when you get a kind of a freebie. You don't really have to work too hard to get it. Those are great. So it's nice to see the system help itself, and we do a lot of that.
Yeah, that's happened to us a lot recently as the world becomes smaller, because the internet is making it smaller. we run into issues where, we can help people all over the U.S., but once we start getting into like international stuff, we just don't have the capacity to do it.
Right.
So we've joined an organization that has international CPA firms because it's becoming more and more common for a client to have a business maybe here in Dallas, but then they've opened up a branch in Mexico, because Mexico's not that far. And the differences are so drastic that there's just no way you can be an expert at both, at least at the size that we're at.
Right.
So it's definitely nice to be able to refer out and feel like, hey, I can trust those guys. They're going to make me look good by referring my client over. And then the same thing with if somebody has a client, maybe they want to work with a local CPA. That happens to us all the time, and they want to come in and meet me face to face. Well, they just send it over, and it's like, hey, we'll help them with just this stuff because that's what you referred them over for, and then there's no, like you said, competition there.
Yep.
What do you think some of the areas are that have been the most helpful to reach out to these people? Is it like employees? Is it pricing? What is it?
Generally, it's two things. I found out it's been helpful. One has been how you got a particular customer or potential customer. How do you kind of what you just mentioned a little bit? How do I price it, or what have you run into this kind of service they've needed? How would you structure it? Basically that kind of stuff. Definitely on the client side, very helpful, especially in odd situations when things are a little odd.
What would be an odd situation in the cleaning business?
Well, for example, they might one is, well, not this is odd really, but just one was, hey, they don't need a full clean. I learned this real early in the deal, but a lot of businesses, they'll come in and they'll be like, hey, we want 5 days a week. And you're like, okay, that's great. How many people you got here? I got X amount of people, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, that's going to be pretty expensive. You come in every day to clean your space, that's going to be pretty expensive. So what do you do? How do you handle that? Because you can't, people are like, oh, y'all, it's only take like 30 minutes. But I'm like, yeah, but I can't send somebody from their home here to clean for 30 minutes and then go home. I mean, it doesn't make financial sense. They're not going to do that.
Right.
So, one of the guys a long time ago says, we call them smart cleans now. Hey, tell you what, how about if we come and clean your place Monday to Wednesday, Friday, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we just come clean your restrooms real quick. And things like that, little creative ideas to go, oh, so now I don't need to spend nearly as much money because you really don't need your place clean 5 days. Most places don't, unless they've got a lot of foot traffic, really don't need 5 days a week. They could get away with 3 times a week. But if they got a lot of if they got a decent amount of people, then obviously the restrooms get kind of rough. So those are like creative ways, and then other things are just unusual cleans like. I was like, hey, they've got a big warehouse and there's 25-foot ceilings and they've got cobwebs. How do you price that out? We got to get a lift. It's 200,000 square feet. How do you do that? And so they just give you ideas of ways to price things on that. The other thing that's been very beneficial from my mentor is I have a franchise base that I deal with now, obviously, and with any system you run into issues with people and so forth, and how would you handle this situation with this particular individual? And that's happened to us here. Sometimes maybe it's just stuff not being on the up and up, that kind of deal. How would you handle it? And 9 times out of 10, one of the guys has probably already been through it, so he'll tell you what he did, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. So it saves you all the brain power, or at least the mistake of trying something that he's proven will work. So maybe that's the route you do go.
Yeah, that's nice. How many franchise bases do you have here in DFW now?
We're running actively about 85 franchises now.
Okay.
So, and that's across Dallas, Fort Worth. So yeah, it's been and we've probably had, over 100. But in that 8 years, we've had some. So we've had some people. Well, we lost somebody in COVID, unfortunately. We've had. And the rest of them have generally moved away. They've either gone back to their country or maybe they moved to another state. So we've sold well over 100, but we currently have about 85 active right now.
Gotcha. Do you think that you'll ever expand to another market or maybe condense down to like just Dallas at some point?
it's funny you asked that. I did actually have a conversation recently about taking on another market, but we decided against that. We probably will never have to expand here because I have the 4 counties right now. So I got Dallas, Collin, Denton, and Tarrant. There's really no need to expand beyond that because you're already talking 8 million people and who knows how many businesses.
Yep.
And so to ever expand, probably not. Shrink, no, I don't know. I mean, the only thing I might ever think about doing, which this might be a long-term play for me. I'm not sure. I could break up Dallas and Fort Worth if I wanted to, and maybe sell one of them if I can keep the other. I could do that if I wanted to. That's my option. But if I were, that's a long ways down the road from because it makes so much sense because there's so much cohesiveness between Dallas and Fort Worth from a business perspective, and it's just easy to I mean, I've got people who do cleaning in Dallas and do cleaning in Fort Worth, and then there's businesses that have a location in Fort Worth and have a location in Dallas. It's kind of nice to have it all together because it just keeps it very very smooth between there's not a lot of problems. Whereas if somebody else had one of those regions, that might be a little more difficult to have to deal with.
Yeah, well, I think, like you said, maybe over the years as DFW grows, and I don't know how much time you have to spend in the day-to-day of the business now, but I'm just curious if you'll ever reach a point where you just don't want to spend the extra time. You kind of want to work more part-time, and maybe splitting the business makes sense. And
yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, but I've got a great staff. I really do. I mean, I'm blessed with my team. I have what we call a regional director. Her name is Miriam. She's been with me since day one. The day we opened the office, she came walking in. And I as I get a little older, I'm deferring more and more back onto them. And so I think it would be for me. I don't have a definite plan yet. I just kind of see myself kind of riding off in the sunset slowly but surely.
So do you think you'll ever fully retire?
I mean, who knows? Probably so. Yeah, probably so, because eventually I'm sure my mind will give out or my body will give out. Something will give out. So, yeah, I think I will. But that's a long ways away. But I'm also not a big believer, and this is just my prayer. I don't know if man is totally meant to totally retire anyways. Now people are like, I got plenty of things to fill my day. Well, yeah, but are they productive things to fill your day? I don't know. But like I said, I probably see myself just continually backing off to the point where maybe I get to the point where maybe I'm working a couple days a week, that type deal. And if any of my staff happens to listen to this, that's not happening anytime soon. So, but I could see it happening eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I am too. I'm still pretty young, so I got a long ways before that's even a consideration. But I just don't really ever see myself fully retiring. Like, I enjoy the mental stimulation of having to solve problems occasionally. Like you said, maybe I'll get to a point where, hey, I don't want to do it 10 hours a day. I'd rather do it 5 hours a day. But, I don't want to just sit around and die, I guess.
Well, and statistically, they've got numbers on that stuff. Men who do totally retired don't generally last too long.
Yeah.
They really don't. So I'm like, well, maybe you're keeping yourself alive by continuing to work some. I mean, yeah, I can tell you right now, I'm not grinding out 60, 70 hours a week anymore by any stretch of imagination, and nor will I ever go back to that. But I could see myself getting down to 20, 25 eventually one day, and that would be kind of, at least kind of keep you in the game, like you said, keep yourself mentally sharp, give yourself something to do. But I don't want to sit around and veg because I could see myself getting on the couch and watching Netflix all day, and because I enjoy doing that on the weekend. So I definitely don't want to do it 7 days a week. So
yeah, I had a client tell me, it was actually last week. He was like, "Yeah, I got about 4 good hours in me every day, and that's about all I have anymore."
yeah, and you know what? You can get a lot done in 4 hours.
Yeah, you really can. Yeah, I think if you were to sit down and look at somebody's actual work day. I bet it would be closer to 4 than it would be to 8.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot of wasted time in a day.
One of the things that I want you to give me some insight on, because I've heard you talk about it a little bit, is whether it's your franchisees or maybe some of your actual W-2 staff. I know that you and your wife care a lot about, company morale, and you try to do things that are maybe a little unique to help support that initiative. So tell me about some of that stuff.
Yeah. So for our franchise base, we do little we have a Christmas party coming up here in a couple weeks. Saturday night. We're gonna our office has a big warehouse in the back section, and we have tables, and we decorate it up, and it works really well for that kind of stuff. And we're gonna bring them. They're all gonna come in with their families, and we're gonna give away door prizes, and we're gonna have some games, and just your typical Christmas type party, which is a big deal to a lot of them because we're very obviously Hispanically based because of what we do, and I think 90+% of our franchise base is Hispanic. But a lot of them didn't get that kind of stuff from a work perspective. I mean, they get that culturally from their families because they're very tight-knit like that, but a lot of them don't get that from their business world. So we try to, they actually look forward to that every year, having the Christmas party. And then we have payday once a month, and we'll schedule it in the afternoon each month, and they'll come in. We'll have set up so they can eat. We'll always have some kind of different food product, and they can come in and eat and sit down and talk with our operations managers. We can go over their statements with their checks and all that kind of stuff. But we try to get them so they're involved, and they get to know each other as well. I had some people think, you don't want your franchises, you're just talking to each other. But to me, it doesn't bother me because we're doing things right. I'm not worried about it. As long as you're doing things right, who cares if they talk with each other? And I think it's actually good because some of them get to know each other. So we do that every month for our franchises. For my employees, I'm blessed. I mean, I am. It's a very tight knit group of people. They're all very motivated.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact they don't have to be micromanaged because I'm not a micromanager. But we try to do something every quarter with them and their family and their wives, or some of them have kids. And we have different events we do every quarter, like I said, and they really enjoy that. I set up a goal every year for them. If they hit the goal, and as a matter of fact, it's going to be close this year. But if we hit our numbers, I gave them to end of January because holidays get a little convoluted with cleaning schedules and so forth.
Yeah.
But if they hit the number at the end of January, then we'll take them and their spouses. We're all going to go on a cruise together. We did that 2 years ago, and that was a big hit. So we'll see if they get there. I hope they do. I'm pulling for them. But we'll see what happens. But we try to always do something every quarter to engage them to make sure they understand how important they are to us. And I think they realize that they are.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I was listening to a podcast. I'm pretty sure this is what I heard on a podcast where it was a business that had been like a family-owned business for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and then they were purchased by, I don't remember if it was like private equity or something like that. And they had this big company event, and they went through all the numbers and all the like detailed things of what people would expect employees to want to know and benefits, et cetera, et cetera. And then after they go through this extensive presentation, it was, hey, is there any questions? And the podcaster was talking about how there was one question. The only question they wanted to know the answer to was, were they still getting the turkeys for Thanksgiving like they had all these years in a row? And I think that people really underestimate the just little things, such as once a month having a meal available for people when they come in, or once a quarter doing something special with their staff. And I know that you guys have put a pretty big emphasis on that just because you think it's the right thing to do. But people, I think, easily just skip past those types of things.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, companies can get, I think personally, and that's tougher when you're a bigger company. I get it. I mean, we're a small company, and obviously I got a lot of flexibility. But if all you think about is how much money you pay people, it doesn't really overly motivate them over time. Mm-hmm. What motivates them over time is believing in the business, enjoying the relationships that they have, and feeling the appreciation for what they do. I think if you do those things right, then you won't have a problem with, because people, if all they get was, they just, all I make is a paycheck and that's all I have. Man, that's a sad. I think that's a sad way to have to live life, because you spend more, like you said, you spend more time at work than you do at home.
Yeah.
And so I'm a believer that you need to kind of need to hit all the areas. To your turkey point, that's a big deal to those guys. Hopefully, they did a little more than just a turkey, but it's, like I said, it's important to show your gratitude, and just simply by a paycheck and nothing else. I don't think that works.
Yeah. Has there been a moment, because when you're completely on your own, you can do whatever you want, and like you said, you have a lot of freedom to kind of do within the business what you want, but you're still underneath this larger umbrella of Stratus. Has there been a moment where you've run into a headache where you're like, I would have done things differently, but I can't because I'm tied to Stratus?
Yeah, there are some things, not a lot. Aaron, we're trying to figure out a new website right now. It's a little frustrating. It's been taking longer than it should. I would have had this done, about a year ago. I would have had it done if it was mine by myself.
Right.
But I don't control that, so I just have to, and it's a corporation, and there's a lot of moving parts, and things move slower when you're part of a big machine, and I get it. So yeah, there are things I would do differently for sure, but that comes with being small and nimble versus being large and slow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like really the biggest frustration is maybe just the pace.
Yeah, pace things are a little too slow. And I hate that word, time is money, but I do hate that. I really do. But I do see it a little bit more now, because I'm like, if I could have grown at 15%, if I could have grown 20% this year instead of 15%, I can't get that back. So that time is money when it comes to growth and that kind of stuff. So it does make a difference. So. Yeah,
well, on the flip side of that, what are maybe some of the pros of joining a larger business as a franchisee?
Well, the greatness is I didn't have to come up with the idea. I mean, I really didn't. And I had a playbook of how to do it, and I didn't have to figure all that out. That was all. So basically they took all the guesswork out of the business. And that allowed me more time just to focus on driving all the key initiatives that need to be done without, I have far less trial and error than somebody who owns their own business without a franchise system. Now, and that's the benefit of a franchise over, an individually owned business. Now, beyond truth though, an individual owned business, they don't have the royalties that I got to pay every month. So, there's a cost to me for that. So, it's not like I'm just like, you should always go franchise. No, if you know how to do it and you don't need a franchise, you should do it. Not use a franchise, save yourself the money. But the franchise system is a model that definitely allows a lot of people to get into businesses that they never would without that. Because, I'm not a dummy, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room either. And I could probably figure some stuff out. But this definitely accelerated that process.
So then the ultimate question, if you could go back and redo it, would you do it again?
Yeah, I would definitely do it again. I mean, it's, it's like anything. You have some frustrations with the mechanism that you're under. But it's definitely, I'm definitely living at a level of life now that I wasn't able to live at before.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up with just a few fun questions, and then the last question is always the same. So let's make one specific to you. If you did another franchise, and maybe the business is a franchise, let's just say you're basically taking a larger company and making a franchise out of it. With any industry, money wasn't really an issue. What would you do as a new franchise?
So you mean what business would I make into a franchise?
Yeah.
Whew, I hadn't really thought about that.
I really threw a curveball at you.
Well, it is. Because I'm trying to think, in my head, I'm trying to think, what industries are there that aren't, because so many are franchise.
Yeah.
A lot of people are shocked when they find out. I'll get back to the question, but I was part of a board at an International Franchise Association meeting last week in Fort Worth, And I found out, and maybe a little plug for them, Simply Donuts is a franchise system.
Oh yeah.
And I had no clue. I mean, I've seen the Simply Donut place down from my house, and I've seen a few others, but I never even thought about it. I'm like, oh, they're a franchise. There's so many things out there that are franchises that you don't even realize are franchises until you either go around the country or even go across the state, and you're like, wait a minute, that's back at my house.
Yep.
But from an industry perspective, as a franchise, yeah, I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to be able to franchise an airline system and be able to have your own airlines, type deal. But obviously that's not realistic because of the amount of capital that would take. But yeah, I'd have to noodle on that one a bit more because I don't know what industries out there I'd want to franchise.
Yeah, I think an airline one would be pretty cool to be able to say, there's my plane going across the sky.
Got my name on it. Trump did that, right? When he had Trump Airlines back in the day.
Yeah.
And he didn't even make it either. So, I mean, it'd be a tough one to do. But yeah.
I think listening to how airlines were, 25 years ago is pretty interesting. I've heard people talk about it before. It kind of seems like the Wild West compared to what it's like now.
No, there's no doubt. Look how many of them there were.
Yeah.
And now most of them are gone.
Yeah, they've all consolidated.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so a little easier question. Maybe what's some of the favorite things that you do with your family?
Favorite things are a couple things. Me and my wife, we really like to travel. And we're getting back to traveling more. Mm-hmm. Not that we slowed way down, but we probably tempered back a little bit because the business is, now we're like looking for opportunities to go away. We went to Vegas last weekend, matter of fact, just because we wanted to go see some shows, so we just went there. So traveling is definitely, we've already got some things on the calendar for next year, some pretty good ones too. So traveling is definitely one of them. I love hanging out with my granddaughter. She's 13, and she still thinks Grandpa and Gigi are cool, so that's great. We do. We get her. She comes and spends the night with us once a week, just about, and we have spending a lot of time with her is a lot of fun. She's gonna figure out we're not that cool pretty soon, so that might end, and if it does, it does. But no, we love spending time with her, and then just getting together with our family or our friends. We like doing a lot of entertainment at our house, cooking, and we have a pool and coming over swimming and just kind of hanging out and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you ever go places and notice how clean or not clean they are?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I do. I was going to throw this building under the bus. I was in the restroom in here, and I was like, oh, my gosh. It was not good. I do that, and which I never did before I got into the cleaning world. It's sometimes it's a bit of a curse because you can't help yourself,
Yeah.
But it's always a sales opportunity too, so you always got to remember that. I've landed a few deals because of that. Just that place is pretty rough. Here's my card, that type deal. So, but yeah, I do notice generally.
Yeah. So you might go make a few sales once we're done here.
Yeah. It needs some help for sure.
Okay, and then the last question that we always like to ask guests is whether it's an entrepreneur that's currently doing something, or maybe somebody that's considering becoming an entrepreneur, or maybe somebody that's been around for a long time. What's the best advice that you could give them?
The best advice from a business perspective, I always say this, is if you're going to start a business, don't get so spun up on what the end product or deliverable is, because that's really not that important. What's important is you've got to make sure you have a business model that works. Janitorial, the business model, everybody needs us. There's no endless, it never ends. Mm-hmm. People are always going to clean. So that was one of the things that attracted me to Stratus when I finally decided I was going to do it. I was like, yeah, everybody is a potential customer, literally. That was a big deal. The other thing was technology couldn't make me irrelevant. That was a big deal. And the economy, my business sways with the economy, but my business does not crater or peak with the economy because you still need to clean, even if unless you're. Unfortunately, if a business goes out of business, then they cancel. I get it because they got out of business, but we don't have. So it's what I tell people all the time is look at the business model. One of my favorite. I don't know if I made this story up or heard it somewhere. So somebody can fact check me on this, but like I said, the business model is more important. I think my buddies thought I was a little crazy when I was going into janitorial. They're like, "What are you doing?" But then again, I think about a company that, think about the families that own canning companies that can beans. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's not the sexiest business in the world, but I bet they're all sitting in some big fat houses and enjoying their lives, and their businesses are thriving and doing well. It wasn't the fact that it's beans or canning. It was the business model. It was a need that you could be replicated. So I always tell people, pay more attention to that, because there's plenty of cool ideas out there. There's plenty of cool products that never make it.
Yeah,
because there's not a good model behind them to get them out there. So I always tell people that, and I told myself that over the years. I always tell myself, it's the simple things that you can be real successful with. It doesn't have to be something you don't have to meet. You've made the latest widget that nobody ever has made. Well, if you've done, that's great, but how many people can do that? Not many. So look for that. Look for a model that makes sense, and if it makes sense and you can see it and you can play it out and you can prove it out, then that's where you go after.
Yeah, that's really great advice, Shaun. And I think even more so with today, with everything being blasted all over the internet, people want to look for the next sexy thing. Mm-hmm. And like you said, a lot of times if you go for the boring, basic business, those are the ones that really make the money. And I've seen it time and time again. So.
You would, because all the different clients you got, I'm sure you got a bunch of examples of that.
Yeah, we definitely do. Well, thanks so much, Shaun. This has been great. Lots of good insight. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you.